Those with loaded guns, and those who dig.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outlawed Thoughts. 1 second, I have a CD in the back room here. All right, there we go. Perfect timing.
You have a DVD as well.
Everybody's here for this is episode 41. We're only
Holy
missing
shit!
We're only missing a Josh to be at our original crew here. But he's
hey, I'd love to have you on.
Nice.
That's a dad joke. All right. I've got a bunch of different stories we're going to do tonight. The main ones are Twitter files, because we just haven't really gone through them as well as I'd like to on the show. SBF being arrested, which is a whole shit show. Alex Stein versus Dave Portnoy, which has been pretty funny to watch on Twitter. And then some Alaska State Trooper drama over on my neck of the woods. Old guy got beat up last year.
Shit.
And some info coming out about that. Shout out to Benzo in the chat. She always seems to be the first here. We will get things rolling here. I'm gonna we'll start with this Alex Stein thing, because this is funny. So who here has seen what has played out over the last couple months? I suppose we'll start there with him and Dave Portnoy.
Well, let's start. I remember there was one point where he was walking down the street with Eye Patch McCain, and he's like, "Oh, Dave Portnoy tweeted out like, I hate you, Alex Stein. Like he assaulted an old woman or something." And he's like, "That is that's completely false." And then Eye Patch McCain's like, "Yeah, he assaulted an old woman." I'm like, what? So I know Portnoy doesn't like
Dave
it.
and Lexington.
I don't really care for Dave Portnoy or.
So here's the backstory to why they feuded in the first place, was because Alex Stein had a rant he did in, I believe, Las Vegas at a city council meeting. Somebody on the Barstool Sports team retweeted it. It got a ton of views. It was getting a ton of views anyway, but the guy retweeted it. He didn't watch the entire video, because partway through his rant, he starts going off about gambling and stuff like that. And Barstool Sports has a bunch of sponsorships with gambling companies. They run a bunch of gambling things, events and stuff. So Portnoy told them basically to pull the tweet down, to pull the retweet. So they pulled the retweet or quote tweet or whatever it was. Alex Stein took notice of it, immediately started calling out Portnoy on Twitter, just clowned on him. There was some exchanges and other things and stuff. Portnoy talked about him a couple times in some streams and things. It seemed to die off. Then there was some more exchanges on Twitter and stuff, and it seems like Alex Stein and him had just gone back and forth a few times. But regardless, they have a public office. So Alex Stein did what Alex Stein does best and went to the public office.
Of course.
So there's this Mediaite article that Alex shared, which I want to read some of because it's hilarious, but I think it'd be better if we just start with the video of him going in here. This is the YouTube version. There's a version on Twitter that's about 45 seconds longer, and it's less edited, but it has nudity in it. And so we can't do that one on YouTube. But I have his YouTube upload, which has
Nudity. What do you do?
Oh, you'll see. Dontavius.
We're here looking for Dave. I brought my wife's boyfriend. Hey, I'm looking for Dave Portnoy. Come on, Dontarius. Dontarius.
Oh, God damn it, Mark.
Prime time. Come on, Dontarius. I brought my wife's boyfriend in here. Come on, guys. Where's Dave Portnoy? Where's Dave? I'm with my wife's boyfriend. I'm with my wife's boyfriend. Where's Dave? Hey, Dave Portnoy, we're here for you. You invite on your podcast, Francis Ellis. Don't make fun of Tucker Carlson, Francis. Do not make fun of Tucker. Do not make fun of Tucker. It's prime time. Marshall, Dave, what are you doing? I got my wife's boyfriend in here. Hold on.
His ass completely hanging out.
I just want to know what's Dave. Dude, where's Dave?
I love the cup of change.
Where's Dave? Where's Dave? You guys are all cowards. You guys can't do anything. Where are you at, Dave? I brought my wife's boyfriend. Come and do something about it, Dave. I'm not afraid of you, you little wimp. Invite me on your podcast and uninvite me. Me and Dontarius, we got something to say about it. Where you at, Dave? Where you at, buddy? You over here? We're not scared, Dave. We're not scared. Come on, Dave. Where you at, Dave? Come on. We're not scared. Do it, guys. Do it. Serious. You know you guys are scared of Dontarius. Come on out, Frank. Come on out, Frank. Are you scared, Frank? Come on. Come on out. Come on. Oh, come on. Guys, this is it. I'm a plant-based pimp. Dave, you're a coward. I'm here. I'm in your freaking...
Don't talk about pointing like that. Don't talk about
Yeah,
pointing like that. What the fuck you doing, nigga?
He's
What
scared.
you doing, bitch? What are you doing? Don't talk about my shit. Get the fuck out
Oh,
of
I'm
here.
so
Get the fuck out of here, nigga.
We're gonna leave, but where's Dave? Where's Dave? Where's Dave at?
Also, I didn't realize the first time I watched this through, but you just saw him streak over, and then I realized when I went on Twitter, in the Twitter video, you see him more. But that is Cecil,
Where's
a
Dave?
guy who does like comic book review stuff with the red mask on. I watch his YouTube live streams and shit, and I guess him and Chrissy Mayer met up with Stein when they went to do this. So he was like the cameraman for Alex.
Where's Dave? Where's Dave at? Yeah, because he's a coward. Okay. Well, he invited me on his podcast. You know that. You know who I am. Okay, well, Dave knows. He invited me on his podcast, and he's a coward. And then he uninvites me. I'm just saying. And then Francis Ellis making fun of Tucker Carlson. Nobody makes fun of my biological father, Tucker Carlson. So tell Francis. You know, it's just funny because this is I got two angles of this all.
I love Alex.
I know you're so cool. You're just hitting my camera. That's so
All
cool.
right. What you saying,
That's awesome. I'm just saying.
What you saying, though? What you saying, though?
I'm right here.
What you saying, though?
Okay, I'm right here.
What you saying, though?
Oh, I'm so scared.
What you saying, though? What you saying, though?
I'm so scared.
What's cracking, though?
I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot.
Ew. That is the best reaction.
Go in the elevator. Come back in that show, bitch.
Yeah, you guys look like real classy people. Barstool Sports, good one.
Okay, so. What? Okay, so. Let me understand. So there was the gambling rant. Then Alex said, "Come on my podcast." Then he showed up. Then this happened, right?
Right.
What about the old woman getting assaulted story Dave made up on Twitter?
That's a whole separate thing. I don't know what the fuck that's about.
This is just Dave doesn't like Alex for some reason. Is just trying to
So
act.
it all comes from the fact that Alex trolled him on Twitter so thoroughly that I think for one of the first times, like Dave Portnoy rarely gets heat to the point where like he notices it. And there was enough shit thrown his way on Twitter because of him unretweeting the Alex Stein thing that I think it pissed him off. And he did tweet out after that he actively wanted to, like, he was rooting for Alex Stein's demise and shit.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, they have a bit of a feud. Stein's whole thing is great because he shows up to public places. I made a comment on Twitter, and I know the Quartering and a couple other people did too, where they were like, yeah, there's just so many cases of assault in that clip. Like, I know I don't think Alex Stein is the type to ever really do anything about it, but there's been so many opportunities where that guy could legitimately get people pressed up in court. Because, yeah, they got a bunch of employees for somebody's business, which has an LLC and an entity behind it, and they're assaulting somebody who's walking into their public business. That is beyond lawsuit territory. Yeah. That's like, if Alex Stein wanted to, in not only this situation but many others, he could just butt fuck these people in civil court. Like,
I mean, people have to know that's what he does. Like, he called AOC a big booty Latina and stuff like that, and she's just like,
okay. He went on this time because Dave's co-host was on Fox talking shit about Tucker on a hot mic. Yeah, I heard about this. So the redhead guy that he was showing there, which is one of Barstool Sports persons, was talking shit about Tucker Carlson.
I mean, it's whatever. Like, I'm not the hugest Tucker fan.
Well, yeah, but that's Alex Stein's like character, and so he took that as a reason to show up to the place. It is what it is. I think Alex Stein has a perfect persona because he's so likable that the people who get pissed at him almost immediately become unlikable.
Is there a political element anywhere to this other than just trash talking Tucker? They just don't.
No, it's just fun to watch the world burn. So there's another angle to it here, which was during someone's podcast, I guess.
This guy's just.
Oh, we had someone getting booted. We had a homeless guy and a
homeless guy
and a vlogger.
What podcast is this?
One of the bars.
Yeah, love it.
They got a bunch of them, but that was the chaos from the
wow.
And then Jack Posobiec shared something I thought was pretty fucking great, which was he put this up. So he put this screenshot up. Dear Elon Musk, I stormed Twitter HQ a decade ago and demanded to be verified. Right? So I love the fact that Portnoy, this kind of stops Portnoy from being able to use the "you came to my office and showed up" kind of excuse, because it's like you did the exact same thing to Twitter back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought my favorite part of the whole video was the white guy that was like holding, sort of, kind of, not really holding back the two black chicks. And the look on his face was like, I am not responsible for these two women. Like, pretty whatever much. They're about to do, they're on their own. Yeah, that part I thought was fun. But no, this is great. Alex Stein at his finest.
He's funny. He's probably
hilarious, dude.
I have
he's
seen.
So funny.
Dutch McCain, why don't you like me? I could help you. We're both from Texas.
Dude.
You're a globalist.
So I saw there was an article written, the Mediaite wrote this. Far-right troll forcibly removed after trying to crash Barstool Sports HQ. Do not make fun of Tucker. On Monday morning, far-right troll Alex Stein burst into the offices of Barstool Sports headquarters demanding to speak with founder Dave Portnoy and was forcibly kicked out. Stein, who was accompanied by a half-naked man he identified as his wife's boyfriend Dontarius, posted the 4-minute-long encounter on Twitter. Stein appeared at the New York offices to complain about a revoked invitation to appear on Portnoy's podcast and recent comments made by Barstool Sports' Francis Ellis, in which he said Fox News was trafficking in hate. We're here looking for Dave.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's the Mediaite. And the guy who was quoted from Barstool's class A idiot. How
Yeah.
about just lock the fucking doors? Yeah, that is true. They could have just locked the doors at any point, but there was nobody pushing on the doors. I'll add. It wasn't like they were standing there consistently just trying to get through. Once they put them in the opposite room, they just stayed there.
Fair enough. I'll make 2 points then. I think funny. A, I like how every media article about someone they don't like is far right. It's never far left. Like, you can be Antifa, and they're like, well, or you can be like, I think the World Economic Forum should push all their policies. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, far right guy says that, town should secede or something, or far right guy wants to keep his gun. So I hate that. I see that all the time. Everybody's far right, except it's just, to me, like an ad hominem without a small ad hominem without doing it. It's just like, oh, he has a view that's not within Bernie Sanders or Biden's worldview. Kick him out. That being said, this is actually how I found Leighton, because I liked your video on what you said about the debates. To his credit, like, people ask me, are there any good Democrats left? And I used to say no, but it seems like Ro Khanna is, and Bernie Sanders is still doing some good work. And
Bernie Sanders just completely cucked out tonight, as far as I'm
well, he brought the
concerned.
War Powers bill, and I was going to say,
that
like,
Bernie Sanders, and the rest of the Democratic establishment that they fucking crawled out from are evil sons of bitches that, as far as I'm concerned, aren't dignified to waste the helicopter fuel on. These people are fucking... From the Democratic establishment to the Republican establishment, they are the worst of the worst. And Bernie Sanders is a member who's been in it for tens and tens and tens of fucking years. Anybody who's been involved in that political system that long is evil.
Okay, fine. I'm not like...
Well, you're allowed to have a different take. That's just my take on it.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm an anarcho-capitalist who wants to work with other anarchists. That's why I talk. I mean, I'm even the one saying to ANCAPs, like, be nice to your ANCOM friend. Like, give him a hug. Read some Bakunin and Kropotkin and ask him what syndicalism is. As opposed to coalitioning with Trump people, if you don't have to. But whether you think Bernie Sanders is good or not, they're bringing up the War Powers Act, Resolution SJ Res 56 today.
Well, no, Bernie Sanders just shot that out. He just pulled it about an hour ago. Scott Horton just tweeted about it. It was pulled by Bernie Sanders himself because it had opposition from Biden. Once again, Bernie Sanders proved that he is part of the Democratic establishment. He's been there for 30 plus years, and he's going to remain there. All of these people are fucking baby killers. They're evil. This is why I became an ANCAP. This is why I became an ANCAP versus anything else, is because my point of view is that basically every person minus maybe 3 or 4 people within the mass scale government should be convicted of treason and war crimes and either sentenced to death or sentenced to rot in prison. Like that should be the result of this. So I don't tend to give anybody a free pass. Everybody did that with Tulsi and her jumping ship and stuff. I certainly don't give her a free pass. I don't think it's a free pass, but I think if we start getting into the game of saying some politicians are better than other politicians, or these politicians gave us this, so they must mean this. No, they're all playing the political class game. They're all trading deals back and forth.
I get it. All I was going to say, well, I did not know an hour ago, because I don't check Twitter that much. Like, I know some people like pop it up like boom, boom, boom. And I probably should before the show. But I was tired. I was in the gym a little bit, and I didn't know he pulled it.
It's all good.
I was excited for it though. I was like, yeah, War Powers Act. We're gonna finally end this. Because to me, actually, what would be nice is if the Yemen thing ended, or at least got under control, so that whoever the Republican comes back in as can't make it,
right.
And they're gonna do something crazy again. I don't know who that is, but yeah. That's kind of
Reminds
a shame.
me of a good Courtney Turner podcast episode she had recently with James Lindsay and Stephen Cohen, or Coughlin, Colin, one of the two, on the roots of Marxism and its modern euphemisms. I don't know how the fuck that guy wants his name pronounced. Coughlin. I feel like that's Coughlin, but every time I would pronounce it that way, I know somebody out there is going to say no, it's actually not. Okay, we have the Twitter files to go through, which I neglected to go through as much on the last one. Starting with part 2, because we did kind of cover part 1 and it was pretty basic. So, Twitter files part 2. I'm not really going to go through this one super deep. This is the real important part of this one, which is that Trin's blacklist is an option here. This means that Twitter has had the ability to blacklist, shadow ban, remove people's posts, do that whole process. It's also come out that they've had the ability to look at people's private DMs, things like this, through this second installment of the Twitter files here. It's pretty much the most important thing out of it is that people like the Dan Bongino, so you can see here that they were marked and flagged and certain things. So it's a lot of Republicans, not a lot of Democrats, very one-sided. Pretty much exactly what I think most people who had interacted on Twitter, interacted with all of these areas, pretty much came to their conclusion on without needing any confirmation on this. I think everybody kind of knew shadow banning, knew these things were going on.
Yeah, I was, because I could see like limited reach, even like talking to Jack and Fo, and I'm like, and they start getting more reach, and I started getting more reach, and I'm like, okay, it was working. Now I will say this: if you go outside Democrats, if you go outside like neoliberal framework, I'm sure Jimmy Dore is probably shadow banned. Wouldn't surprise me.
Right. Well, so here's the deal. Like, the big question is this: how much of it is government telling them to ban these specific people, and how much of it is just that the employee base of Twitter at any given time was dramatically more on the left? So they're going to view these things as more bad or more unsavory and needing to be restricted. So I think that's kind of where people are going to line up argument-wise. Like, you're going to see a lot of people claiming this is 100% proof that the government was doing this stuff. Don't necessarily think that's 100% true. I think there's kind of movement on both fronts in that space, in the meaning that this proves the government could go after specific accounts. It doesn't prove that they were going after blanketed accounts of a specific type, right?
Correct.
Like, it wasn't the feds going to Twitter and saying we want all the Republicans banned. The employees were likely doing that on their own, but they feel like they were given the green light by the management of Twitter and the government.
Yep.
I think that's
clarify.
obvious with the Roth stuff, where you get to see kind of him excited that the government is doing this stuff with them, excited that they're getting to be involved in it.
Mm-hmm. There's not complete free speech on Twitter, like he said. I mean, it's a little bit better. I don't think it's drastically better. That's kind of what I saw.
Yeah, I'd say it's not.
There's a lot of doctors who, well, I will say this. One thing he did I like is he talked to a doctor. I forget the name. Luke was talking about it. And he said, like, thank you for standing up and not backing down even when they censored you. I forget the doctor's name. Older guy, big square glasses. Elon was saying thank you for I did see Dr. Malone was back. There's a few.
Yeah,
there's
Dr.
a lot
Malone.
of doctors.
Dick Masterson got back on Twitter.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think that Twitter is drastically better.
Yeah, I'd say it's better.
I think it's way better. Now I hope it stays better. But I would definitely say, because it was going down fast. I mean, that was insane at the end, and people getting mute, people getting suspended, people just disappearing. It was getting bad. So I think it's great. and give people a new set of rules to play by. And if they don't like them, hopefully the appeals process is real. But I like that it gives people a fair playing ground.
Right. So this is Twitter Files Part 3. I'd agree with that pretty much entirely. I think it's so this is the removal of Donald Trump, Part 1, October 2020, January 6th. The world knows much of the story of what happened between riots at the Capitol on January 6th and the removal of President Donald Trump from Twitter on January 8th. We'll show you what hasn't been revealed, the erosion of standards within the company in months before J6, decisions by high-ranking executives to violate their own policies, and more against the backdrop of ongoing documented interactions with federal agencies. This first installment covers the period before the election through January 6th. Tomorrow, Schellenberger will detail the chaos inside Twitter on January 7th. On Sunday, Barry Weiss will reveal the secret internal communications from the key date of January 8th. Whatever your opinion on the decision to remove Trump that day, the internet communications at Twitter between January 6th and January 8th have clear historical import. Even Twitter's employees understood in the moment it was a landmark moment in the annals of speech. As soon as they finished banning Trump, Twitter execs started processing new power. They prepared to ban future presidents and White Houses, perhaps even Joe Biden. The new administration says one exec will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary. So this is a message here. We stated in our policies ban evasion. It is clear that another account is being used for the purposes of evading a ban. It is also subject to suspension. For government accounts such as POTUS and at White House, we will not suspend those accounts, but will take action to limit their use. However, these accounts will be transitioned over to the new administration in due course and will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary to alleviate real-world harm. Twitter executives removed Trump in part over what was one executive called the context surrounding actions by Trump and supporters over the course of the election and frankly last 4+ years. In the end, they looked at a broad picture, but the approach can cut both ways. So this is basically a message here going over exactly what he just said, saying, and it's Vijay or Vagina, of course, who was handling this whole thing.
I actually feel
where
bad.
Joel Roth comes into the equation. Joel Roth being the kind of front runner to get this ban underway. Kind of skipping forward over some of this because it's a lot of just messages back and forth. Joel Roth and Vijaya and other people within Twitter HQ speaking about how they're going to remove him, what the process is going to look like on the back end. Basically, that is what the remainder of the Twitter files were. So the next day, part 4 was just a continuation of that whole process. It was more of this right here, which is Schellenberger with part 4. I like how Elon puts himself under relevant people on his own platform. Yeah, well, I mean, rich as fuck. Is that a moniker you're gonna have on Twitter? I think if anybody deserves it, he's the one guy who gets it. Twitter Files Part 4. The removal of Donald Trump January 7th. As the pressure builds, Twitter executives build a case for a permanent ban. On January 7th, senior Twitter execs create justifications to ban Trump. Seek a change of policy for Trump alone, distinct from other political leaders. Express no concern for free speech or democracy implications of a ban. This Twitter Files is reported with I Woodhouse. For
I
those
guess-
oh, go ahead.
No, I guess what I think is interesting here, specifically, is I kind of figure this was already happening because the feds were probably just looking for any excuse to ban him, go after him. And then
Right.
they just had a little bit of thing. And I figured, hey, big, media execs were going to do this anyway because there's a clear bias. So I guess I have to say it's interesting to see the communications. I'm not shocked. I figured there was something like this going on. I'd be interested to see if someone could confirm if there's Afghanistan files that said, hey, leave the equipment behind so we can use these people as another proxy if we need to come back here. Thank you,
Right.
Raytheon. So, yeah, I guess I've seen so much how corporatism works now. I'm just like, yep, that's what they do. Or people like, hey, there's some weird occult stuff going on in Hollywood. I'm like, you don't say. Like, it's kind of almost become so shocking now that it's like Family Guy. The shock humor used to make me laugh, and now I'm just like, yep, yeah. I don't know if that's good or bad now, but yeah, there are, especially working with a lot of people in big tech. Yeah, there's a clear bias, and everybody knows there's a clear bias, even though they don't say there is. I'm the one ANCAP, around everybody, but I really don't talk about that at work. What I do say is this, though: as more competitors come, and I actually don't like the way it happened completely with Twitter. I would like to see Web3 kick off, and then Web3 create specific blockchain applications, and then those blockchain applications compete. So if one goes super far left or super far right, or if I go super anarcho-capitalist and I'm banning everyone, it's like, well, I read the Constitution. It made one good point. I'm just banning everybody. People like Cream's gone off. Cream's gone insane. We got to get out of here. That's what I hope to see, more competition to beat it, as opposed to Elon or someone buying a huge company.
SBF fixing to have hashtag died suddenly. So yeah, died suddenly is trending on Twitter with
Did you watch it?
Again?
almost 11,000 tweets. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
it's good.
Again.
It's a good
yeah,
dinosaur.
I watched it. I talked about how horrible I thought it was.
What?
Listen.
Homeboy.
I think it's an interesting documentary. I think it's a good watch if you're interested in the topic, but whoever made that documentary just tried to make it as easy to discredit as possible. And
But Bill Gates does believe this stuff. Malthusian theory exists.
regardless of whether Bill Gates believes it, one of the things I called out in my criticism of it was, for instance, the clip that they use as their whole pinnacle for a whole 10-minute segment in that documentary is a clip that they selectively edited and cut the context out of. And it's like, okay, well, listen, I get you're making a documentary, but I give people shit for doing that to people on my side of the fence. So if you're gonna do it to other people, it's a two-way road.
Okay, fine. Maybe they didn't cut it perfectly, but look, Bill Gates talks all the time. He's like, well, he doesn't outright say it, but you get the kind of backdrop. Well, there's a lot of people here in developing countries. If we just help the people in developing countries, they'll have less children like people in developed countries.
I think I think the problem is documentaries in general exist to convince people of a specific thing. And okay, the Casey Anthony documentary is out right now, and everybody online's talking about that. Casey Anthony killed her kid. That's the reality situation. I don't care what anybody says, that's what happened.
I agree with you.
That girl can make a documentary, make a bunch of money off of it, and market it in such a way that there's a huge population now that will go around forever until the end of history saying she's innocent and it was all her father. So, that's what documentaries do. They can.
I don't agree with that. But here's the thing. I think what you have to do is take the documentary, watch it, and then look out in real life as best as you can and say, is this kind of what makes sense here to do? And do I agree with some of it? Do I agree with the conclusions? Do I agree with the facts? And then do I agree with the thing? Because I'll tell you this. Um, Someone who makes documentaries, I really do like his documentaries, is Michael Moore. I don't agree with his communist conclusions. I think he should have made it corporatist a love story. But when where to invade next, he shows Portugal and says, hey, here's how they ended the drug war. And then I can show people that and go, look, they ended the drug war there. Look what's going on there. I don't agree with his crazy socialist solutions, but can we try to end the drug war here? So most documentaries, yeah, are just, infotainment. But if there is some practical application to say, hey, this medical procedure the establishment given is dangerous. Look, there's some weird white fibrous things coming out of it. I don't want to get any of that spaghetti in me. Well, I guess I don't want to take it. So that's
Right.
what I thought the main thing is.
I'm fine with the documentary that does that. I just don't think this documentary actually does that. I think it shows you a bunch of non-correlating things that you could or could not draw a conclusion to, that they draw a conclusion through by using edited clips and their idea of what they think reality is, with realistically not a whole lot of evidence presented within the entire thing. You've basically got the fibrous clots themselves, and that is the evidence being presented. There isn't any astounding, and data that anybody can access, obviously, that's right there.
Because they're not necessarily going to put it out there like that. Like the elites are not going to come out and say, hey, we believe in Malthusian theory. Therefore, we'd like to get rid of this many people. So how we'll do it is through this. And they're not, I mean, they do say it through the lines. But the hard part with like the elites and stuff are they talk sometimes very, very, these aren't like just tyrants of old who said, hey, I'm just going to burn down your village and steal all your shit. They're not Genghis Khan. They have nice words. We'd like sustainable development. What does that mean? Oh, green communism. That's what that means. Sustainable development's a nice way to say, hey, we're going to enforce climate lockdowns. So they say, oh, we want sustainable growth or something like that. Or, hey, if we do a really good job, we can lower that. Oh, yeah. And then people are laughing. They are saying it. There's Georgia Guidestones. Prince Philip said he wanted to come back as a deadly virus in a Bilderberg meeting. And these are the people who are funding governments who are funding the pharmaceuticals. So I think you can make those conclusions if you're a conspiracy theorist. I don't know.
Most documentaries are unfortunately just meant to be consumable infotainment for the lowest common denominator. One thing I'll mention is the other thing too, and I think I said this in my rant, but it was like, my big worry is that this documentary is going to be compared to the loose changes of the world in the future, which is that it will be used to discredit much of the actual conspiracy that happened. Because people are like, yeah, but look at this thing you guys made back then. And so I think that's something I'm concerned about. I think I would have liked to see something better made that was more put together be the thing that actually got viral. Because I don't think that the virality of this is helping the cause. Because I think that ultimately what they've done with it is not really long term going to mean anything. I want to cover this. We can kind of move on from the Twitter file stuff. Basically, they banned Trump. They knew they were banning Trump. It was scummy all the way around. We kind of already knew that, but I wanted to kind of dig into it a little bit more. There's this whole crypto thing. Sam Bankman-Fried arrested. That actually happened last night. I saw the live streams happening while he was being.
Do you know BitBoy Crypto? Have you ever watched BitBoy Crypto?
I know about the whole thing with him and Atozi, that lawsuit crap. He kind of BitBoy Crypto like last week lost his mind on a stage in or in Orlando, I think. But it's all over. He tried to sue this YouTuber, and then the YouTuber actually went into the lawsuit, and then Atozy pulled out of the lawsuit, or BitBoy pulled out of the lawsuit, and it was this whole ordeal. I know him from that.
He was going after Sam Bankman-Fried, and I saw him with Alex Jones last night. So
Yeah, the problem with that, and Atozy showed this in his last video, he's coming out with all these like cryptic videos saying he knows what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing and knows this whole thing. BitBoy has told people to go buy FTX up until just about a month ago. He was telling people to invest their money into Sam Bankman-Fried's thing. He was talking on his YouTube channel about how it was a sure thing and how it was going to double in money and double and triple FTT token. Everybody's got to buy this. And now he's on Twitter saying, I knew it was all a scam and this is all the thing. It's like, no, he probably got ripped off just like everybody else, but he's just playing it for the views because he knows if he goes on Twitter and goes, I know something no one else knows, they'll all retweet his shit and put his name out there. I mean, the guy's a laughing stock in most of the like crypto community too. It's like, so it's, I don't think that guy has anything that no one else has. Okay. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried arrested in the Bahamas. U.S. authorities filed criminal charges against Sam Bankman-Fried, and the Bahamas intend to extradite him once U.S. officials request it. Sorry, one moment, I need to die. The Royal Bahamas Police arrested FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried. A press statement said the arrest came after the U.S. filed criminal charges against Bankman-Fried. The statement said the nation expects the U.S. to request the Bahamas extradite Bankman-Fried in short order. As a result of the notification received and the material provided therewith, it was deemed appropriate for the Attorney General to seek SBF's arrest and told him and hold him in custody pursuant to our nation's Extradition Act. The statement attributed to Attorney General Ryan Pender said at such time as a formal request for extradition is made, the Bahamas intends to process it promptly pursuant to Bahamian law and its treaty obligations with the United States. A tweet from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York confirmed that prosecutors in the U.S. indicted Bankman-Fried through the indictment remains under seal, though the indictment remains under seal. The U.S. Damian Williams earlier this morning, Bohemian authorities arrested Samuel Bankman-Fried at the request of the U.S. government based on a sealed indictment filed by the SDNY. We expect to move to unseal the indictment in the morning, and we'll have more to say at that time. So I have the follow-up story here, which is Outlawed interior design.
I guess my question is this: do you think he'll pay his way out? Because that's how I kind of feel.
Nah, he's not paying his way out of this one. He's going to be a patsy for this entire thing. Because you got to keep in mind that I highly doubt SBF was funneling all this money and doing all this stuff just for himself. I'm sure there's a lot of people behind
Right. A lot of people got fucked by this. A lot of really high up people.
True, but he also,
and so they want to make sure he gets fucked.
So, indictment against SBF unsealed contains 8 counts of financial and elections fraud. The indictment from the Southern District of New York names only Sam Bankman-Fried, but contains allegations of illegal activities by individuals known and unknown as well. The indictment against Sam Bankman-Fried was unsealed December 13th. The indictment signed by the U.S. Attorney. The charges listed against SBF in the indictment are conspiracy to commit wire fraud on customers, wire fraud on customers, conspiracy to commit wire fraud on lenders, wire fraud on lenders, conspiracy to commit commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and conspiracy to defraud the United States and violate the campaign finance laws. So that's a mouthful of fuckery. So yeah, basically, they're not going to need to really do much. They're going to need to prove very little because they're going to want to put this guy in jail as fast as possible. And then on top of that, he is worth so much money, right? The government has an invested interest to catching this guy because then they can claim whatever cash is left over. So all the way around, I think that he's pretty well fucked. His SBF and his girlfriend scream compromised Fall Guys. Charlie Robinson had a good episode on FTX on his podcast a few weeks ago. Yeah, and that's exactly what this is. I mean, it's textbook. These people did not orchestrate this whole thing.
Oh,
right?
No.
Clearly not. And most likely this is what we're looking at is a massive money laundering scheme that involved governments and big business officials within the crony system.
Don't worry, there will be a documentary on it in 10 years.
I don't know. The case could be made that he already made payment on buying his way out. Yeah, that's the thing is I don't think there's any buying your way out of this because it's a public shit show at this point.
So you think he'll get the Bernie Madoff treatment in that? This is essentially what this is in another way.
Well, yeah. Pretty much.
I mean, he's gonna go to white collar prison. He's not gonna go to like, Alcatraz or Angola for what he did. He's gonna go to a white collar prison.
So I can't say, hey, well, my advice to Sam Bankman Fried would be to hold on the soap better than he did his crypto, though. Hold that soap.
They don't. I don't think they do that in where he's going.
No, he's gonna go to Club Fed or the trial will continue on, and closer to what Benzo Barbie is saying will happen, and
nothing's gonna
and the charges will eventually go nowhere, and he'll be released, and he'll flee to some foreign country because he knows that if he stays in the U.S., he's gonna be popped off somewhere. I mean, he's got enough enemies out there from stealing money from people that it's beyond government at this point, like. He's got more than just that to worry about.
Yeah. Want to hunt him down?
No, he ain't worth it.
He is not worth it, dude.
Plus, that guy's probably got Mossad protecting him. I guarantee it.
I can take him. Hey, I'll be like this, my boy.
What message would this
he's not
to
worth
the Dems, other major donors
I don't know.
Just as corrupt. They don't want to ruin their own gravy train and incriminate themselves in the process. Yeah, so that's the force protecting him. The problem that exists is most of the court case will be sealed anyway. It won't be public. They'll hide everything that happens in the court case regardless if he's found guilty. So they don't have to worry about information getting out there too much to begin with. If anything happens, he's going to get Epstein. Yeah, that's also an option. He just goes right into the prison system and then
Did you see that meme that had Epstein and him? It's like, don't worry, Sam. The security cameras will keep you safe. And it just has a red background. I can pull it up if you want.
I got this video here. This is from my neck of the woods, and I thought we'd react to it a little bit here. At least 3 or 4 minutes of it.
Leighton, how do I know you're not Mossad?
Technically, you don't.
Well, tonight we bring you a story about Bob Bodell from Soldotna. He says he was assaulted by a rookie state trooper after the vehicle he was riding in became stranded.
Can you guys hear?
Troopers say it was Bodell who became argumentative and combative. Investigative reporter Mike Mason began looking into this case back in March.
It was a cold Alaska night in January 2021, around midnight on the Sterling Highway in Soldotna, when Eric Haddock, his wife Katie, and their 71-year-old friend Bob Bodell became stranded. Bodell says Haddock was giving him a ride home when they ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Haddock and his wife say they used their cell phones as flashlights, signaling in the direction of a house at the end of a dark driveway.
Didn't see anybody move or anything, just heard loud dogs. So I decided to point at the vehicle and point where I was going, and then I walked away.
Bob Bodell says he stayed inside the SUV while Haddock and his wife left on foot to get gas. But the people in the house, at the end of that dark driveway, called 911.
All right, tell me exactly what happened. There's suspicious flashlight activity at the end of our driveway. Our dog's going crazy.
Recent trooper recruit Brian Glenn responded to the call. He had graduated from the academy 6 months prior and was working alone that night. Glenn's cruiser was equipped with a dash cam, but it was out of service. He did have a device to record audio. The trooper...
All right, bit of a rant here in between. So if anybody wants to do some homework or just something funny, open up one of your Google Chrome tabs or whatever search browser you use and search Anchorage, Alaska body cams. And what you will find is that for 2 fucking years, there has been a shit-flinging show happening in my state because the state was ordered to get body cams. And then they were just like, nah. And then they were like, no, you have to wear the body cams. Like, we need you to have them because FOIA requests and the whole thing. And they were just like, yeah, but we just don't have them. And they were like, yeah, but we gave you the money, so buy them. And then they bought them, and then they just don't wear them. And so now there's this infinite battle back and forth to get body cams in the first place for these fucking cocksuckers to wear. And so half the time, there is no footage in this state when you do encounter the police. Unless you take it, or unless you're in front of their vehicle where they have the dash cams.
Arrived to find...
So it's just completely ass back.
And a man sitting in the passenger seat of an SUV. Operating procedures for Alaska State Troopers state, officers shall make every effort to digitally record their interactions with the public. Recording prior to contacting the public is recommended.
I was sitting on the passenger side.
But the audio recording in Bodell's case begins after things get heated, and the trooper tells Bodell.
Also, this is these are what average Alaskans look like. If you've ever wondered what like just normal Alaskans look like, this is what the majority of the state is full of. It's just this entire family. They'll show the kids and stuff later on here. It's just like this is.
No, I believe it. You know, it's funny to say, hey, if Joe Vogler's people had more pull, this probably wouldn't be happening. All right.
Joe Vogler was still around. I think he would have clubbed that cop. I don't think it would have been. The issue would have been a group of people with pitchforks. Suspicious flashlight activity. Me when I buy another unnecessary tactical gadget. I was not trying to stereotype it.
He's issuing a disorderly conduct warning.
I'm not asking.
What am I being charged with?
Right now, you're not being charged with anything. Right now, I'm just talking to you, okay?
So I'm done answering questions.
Bodell claims he had already told Trooper Glenn who he was, where he lived, how he had a prior head injury, and that he doesn't have a driver's license. But Trooper Glenn's report states Bodell refused to provide one or identify himself. The trooper also reported...
By the way, did you see how they were, what they were doing at that house? They were starting a generator, and they had like 9 or 10 gas cans around it. That's what actual off-grid living looks like. It doesn't look like these fucking people, and I'm calling out every libertarian who does this with their quote-unquote homestead, with their power pole that's hooked up to fucking non-private energy, and their fucking bullshit water supply that's coming directly from their government infrastructure. That is not off the grid. You've never lived off the grid. If that's how you're living, that isn't off the grid. You are by definition literally on the grid. Like that is. And now I'm not going to be a fruitcake and say off the grid means you can't have internet. You got to be out, hundreds of miles from civilization. But the grid refers to the fucking power. It refers to the water grid. It refers to the thing that you're literally connected to. So that's my rant on that. But yeah, most off the grid homes here, like we used to do the same thing, run off a generator. Like that's what you use.
Reported smelling alcohol and spotting a bottle of whiskey in Bodell's jacket pocket. Bodell claims Glenn kept insisting he was the one driving the vehicle, not waiting for his friends to get gas.
Right now, it sounds to me like you're lying to me, okay?
I give you my name and address.
Okay. Oh, some people are just walking down the street, you know, giving me a ride, except that there's nobody walking down the street.
Bodell grew angry.
When I faced him, I said, no!
Spouting profanities before calling his friends on his cell phone, which he then handed over to the trooper to verify his story. Glenn spoke with Haddock, who confirmed he was getting gas. That's when Trooper Glenn took to the radio.
Any units in the area, there's 2 individuals passing an old KSRM. One of them's claiming to be the driver of this vehicle.
Bodell says that's when he decided to keep his mouth and the car door shut.
Sir, I'm gonna need you to open the door for a minute, okay?
You wouldn't let me exercise my right to remain silent.
Within minutes, the incident escalated to this.
If you make any more noise, raise your voice, act a fool, okay, you're gonna be arrested for disorderly conduct.
Let me tell you something, mother.
Get on the ground now. Get on the ground now. On the ground now. Do not move. On your stomach. On your stomach.
The incident report confirms Bodell was maced, tased twice, and struck in the head and face by Trooper Glenn before being taken to the ground and handcuffed.
Right now you're under arrest for assault in the 4th degree and disorderly conduct.
Paramedics arrived to assess Bodell's condition.
Just so you know, he has no complaints, but he does have a little bit of a busted face. So I have no idea if he's got any underlying health conditions, I would imagine.
Trooper Glenn talked to his sergeant, Joseph Miller, about Bodell's medical treatment.
No, I gotta take him down to hospital, get him out of the clear, huh?
No,
No.
not necessarily.
Right.
What's wrong with him? Got a little freaking nosebleed? Who gives a
They had my face down in the snow there, and they never took me to the hospital for being unconscious. They didn't take me to the hospital for that.
At the time, another trooper, Jacob Barker, was wrapping up a different call.
Hey, what's going on?
Barker set out to find Bodell's friends. His dash cam was working.
They're walking on the northbound shoulder.
The video shows Barker's cruiser reach 75 miles an hour, traveling through downtown Soldotna, and even higher speeds, up to 97 miles an hour for 7 minutes, while driving on dark, snow-covered roads. Trooper Barker did not use his flashing lights. It was a seemingly frantic search to find a couple walking down the road to get gas. A response the Department of Public Safety's commissioner says violates standard operating procedures.
He was in violation of our policy by not having his overheads and sirens there.
Trooper Barker eventually found Haddock and his wife, Katie.
All right, Eric, so how much have you had to drink tonight?
I had a beer, like, early.
Well, I'm smelling a lot of alcohol coming off of you.
My wife's been drinking all night.
Okay, well, just from what I'm smelling, I'm going to say a beer isn't honest.
It seemed at that point they were no longer interested in anything other than trying to find something to stick, a charge.
And there was a report of you having an alcohol bottle on you.
No alcohol.
When you were walking away.
Despite the fact Haddock was far away from his car, he agreed to a field sobriety test. Trooper recruit Joseph Robles, who graduated from the academy 2 months prior, conducted that test.
When did you have your first drink tonight?
By the way, I'll say this. Never do that. Don't ever do the field sobriety test. If they're going to arrest you for DUI, they're going to arrest you regardless. And you make them do the fucking blood test with a warrant. You do not submit to that shit.
Yeah, the problem is people don't know their rights. People don't know, and I've talked to them. Cops like, I'm searching your car. You can say, no, I don't consent to uninformed searches. And they will say no because it's the Fourth Amendment. But people do it all the police told me I have to. And I'm like, you know what? I will say this. You know what side of the fence doesn't believe in police, and comms don't like police either. So this is another reason to coalition with them. Just saying.
Shout out AJ in the chat. We're just looking.
When did I have my only drink? Gosh, around 4.
Around 4?
Yep.
Haddock was tested and apparently passed. Robles then stepped aside to consult with another trooper.
In this situation, would I be able to use a PBT to see if he has any alcohol in him?
So there isn't an arrest anyway, right?
No.
So what's the PBT matter?
I guess it doesn't really, because I have to make my decision before that, just to confirm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, drop
That's fine.
foot,
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cold out that evening. They made me wait on the side of the road for over an hour and a half with my wife.
Sorry, Eric.
Eventually, Haddock and his wife were free to go. But that was not the case with Bodell, as he described in this YouTube video recorded 4 days after his arrest.
This is what happens when you exercise your rights to remain silent to the Alaska State Troopers.
Bodell would have to plead his case in court, and he was worried it was his word against the troopers.
That means I'm going to die in prison for nothing.
But this isn't the end of Bodell's story. 6 weeks after his arrest, a new witness comes forward, and the case takes an unexpected turn. Mike Mason brings us part 2 of the story tomorrow night at 6.
In January 2021, 71-year-old Bob Bodell was arrested and released, awaiting trial on charges of disorderly conduct and the assault of a state trooper. But Bodell believes he is the victim of a rookie trooper.
This wasn't all they did to me.
71-year-old Bob Bodell was maced, tased twice, and struck in the head and face by Trooper Brian Glenn, who had been on the force for about 6 months. But there is no video of the incident in question because the officer's dash cam was out of service and his replacement cruiser didn't have one. And his audio recording was started well after the exchange became heated. Bodell says the incident left him with uncontrollable shakes and memory problems, making him more dependent upon caretakers.
Yeah, I used to be able to ride the four-wheeler, but yeah, that's out.
But an internal AST investigation determined Trooper Brian Glenn did not use excessive force.
He was the aggressive person. Our trooper was not aggressive during this.
The Department of Public Safety says a third-party law enforcement agency also investigated the Bodell case, and they came to the same conclusion. So this case was then forwarded to the district attorney's office for prosecution, and the DA's case was gaining momentum. Nearly a month and a half after Bodell's arrest, a new witness emerged. Troopers were notified that a woman who was in the house at the end of the long driveway witnessed the incident. Alaska's news source obtained the audio recording of Sergeant Joseph Miller's interview conducted with Lakeisha Lee and her brother-in-law, Richard Fenn. Fenn says he couldn't make out what was going on because his view was obstructed by his truck, but Lakeisha Lee claims to have seen more.
It looked like once a trooper opened the door, there was either a punch thrown from the other guy or he lunged. It was really hard to see where at. You know, our driveway is pretty long, so.
Keep in mind, these are the people who called the police on the guy.
Right.
I didn't have a clear view.
She said that she saw you lunge at the officer.
Did not happen.
Did you swing at the officer?
Did not happen.
Why would she say that?
Lie.
Why would she lie?
She's a cop's wife.
Though we have no evidence Lee lied in this case, Alaska's news source did confirm Lakeisha Lee is the wife of former Kenai police officer Charles Lee, who at the time of the incident had just taken a new job with the Homer PD. Charles Lee has been an active member of the Alaska State Troopers Emergency Reaction Team. At the end of Lakeisha Lee's statement in the Bodell case, she and Sergeant Miller can be heard chatting about her husband.
Well, we're going to miss your hubby up here in Kenai.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, what I've been hearing from troopers. From KPD, not so much, but from troopers. We've been hearing that a lot.
Hi, this is Mike Mason with Alaska's News Source. We reached out to Lakeisha Lee to ask why she waited 6 weeks to come forward and if she was confident in what she saw that night. But we were unable to reach her by phone or email. Meanwhile, more than a year and a half had passed, and Bodell was still awaiting trial.
Did you think that if you were convicted that you would have died in jail?
Oh, I know I would.
But there would be yet another twist in this case. Trooper Brian Glenn resigned from the Alaska State Troopers, and AST says he left the state. We broke the news to Bodell.
Really? He left like last week. That makes you pretty happy.
Stay out.
It's all been worth it.
AST says Glenn resigned in good standing, and they stand by the arrest. They say Bodell is the one who escalated the situation by spouting profanities and lunging at the trooper. But just one day after Bodell's August 15th trial date was set, the case was dismissed. The district attorney's office says without Trooper Glenn's testimony in court, the case could not proceed.
You know.
That news was bittersweet for Bodell, who says he'll never get the chance to clear his name.
Is it justice? No. I mean, Brian Glenn's not a cop, but they let him resign, so he'll just go get a job as a cop somewhere else and do the same thing to some other old person.
Alaska's news source has confirmed Brian Glenn recently did begin working as a Tennessee highway patrolman. We tried contacting him through the department, but were told he was unable to speak with us while finishing up field training. Alaska State Troopers say Glenn has no further comment, and they feel strongly that he did nothing wrong. We also want to be clear that the cruiser Glenn drove that night was not equipped with a dash cam. His regular assigned cruiser was in the shop because the dash cam was out of service.
So, at the end of the day, charges ended up getting dropped, but that cop just goes on to go work for another station. And realistically, what ends up going on there is that, the DA knew that the case going to trial would look bad for the cops, and he'd probably get off anyway, because there's no evidence that he lunged at the cop. So what do? Well, he just goes to the cop and says, resign in good standing and leave the state, because then you can't testify, and we can't force you to come to the state to testify. And so it just solves the problem. Yeah, heads up, Tennessee drivers. No shit.
You know who else solved the problem? This man's a hero. A lot of people don't know a hero when they see a hero because they watch Marvel movies and they get MK Ultra and wear Balenciaga and eat a bunch of food with seed oils instead of going carnivore and wearing anti-EMF stuff and coalitioning with other anarchists. So in Philadelphia, I actually think you probably did see it. I posted a little thing, and I think this is actually the one Facebook post that probably my biggest Facebook post ever that got the most reach in the Mises Caucus. There was a gas station owner who just said, "I'm tired of people robbing me. The cops don't."
Yeah, I saw that. So
yeah, he just hired private security at his gas stop, and from what I can see, it's been working really, really well, which is interesting because the media doesn't seem to. I'm not seeing like anybody like, hey, what about this story? They're like, no. I'm like, this is interesting. They're like, yeah, just private security. I'm like, yeah, but it's just private security. What that's showing me is that, hey, the cops aren't working in this area, and that security can do a much better job, meaning that because people like to always make these jokes like, oh, private police, well, you just have a bunch of security guards and everybody be fighting each other and no poor people would ever get help. And I don't think necessarily being a gas station owner means you're a rich person. You're doing okay, but you're not. Maybe he's making six figures, but I don't think this guy is like some aristocrat exactly. So I can bring that story up if you want.
I think we watched the video. We watched the video of the guys with the guns on the last stream, I think, with Jacob.
Well, going back to the video that we just watched, I think it's interesting that the fact that he fled the state is like the biggest deterrent for them. Like, it's 1876 and we can't find somebody in the modern and bring him back and charge him, or at least that dude could file a civil case against him. I'm just saying, I thought that part was really interesting, that was their end all. Oh, well, he left the state, so
yep,
that.
That's how things tend to work here. There's been a lot of cops that have gotten involved with officer involved shootings and stuff like that, where the cop will just disappear.
And that's that.
Yeah.
It's over. That's it, folks.
AJ
Oh,
says
yeah.
that's why the ATF is coming down on privately made firearms. They hate independent protection. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure eventually they'll come down on some form of private security too, or at least attempt to. They'll make new insurance requirements or something along those lines. Well, I wanna close things out somewhat early tonight because I gotta go eat.
Yeah, that's cool with
And
me.
I got work
Yeah.
and stuff. So if we're
There you
good
go.
here, we'll go ahead and close it out. Go ahead and follow everybody. CD Lady and Cap on Twitter. Kareem for Liberty and at Liberty Layton. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode for number 42.